Recovered Guild Expedition Report. Status: unresolved. Begin record.
There are monsters that hunt. There are monsters that kill. And then there are monsters that make entire villages prey, not for survival, but for forgiveness. Because somewhere deep within the forgotten reaches of the old world, there are stories of a beast so feared that even hardened hunters refuse to speak its name after sunset. A creature believed by some to be older than kingdoms, older than guild records, older than memory itself. A creature whose presence seems to poison the mind, whose victims report hearing things that aren't there, whose bodies are found burned from the inside out, and whose remains sometimes harden into pale, stone-like shells long after death. The guild officially classifies it as a variant, an ancient Scorned Magnamalo. But the few survivors who have witnessed it call it something else. A name whispered only in trembling voices. A name spoken like a prayer or a curse. Hellflame Magnamalo, the devil of the hollow lands. And if the legends are true, its hellfire has become something far worse than the volatile gas documented by the guild, something capable of lingering long after the monster itself has vanished, something that leaves entire regions changed. Magnamalo has always been one of the most terrifying predators ever documented, a living weapon fueled by the suffering of war, a monster that thrives upon death itself. Its signature hellfire is already among the most dangerous phenomena in nature, capable of reducing hunters to ash in moments. Then there is Scorned Magnamalo, an older, more violent form, a creature whose rage has grown beyond reason, beyond instinct, beyond survival. Yet even Scorned Magnamalo pales before the nightmare hidden within ancient frontier myths. According to fragmented accounts discovered in ruined settlements and abandoned watchposts, there once existed a Scorned Magnamalo, so old that its body began to change. Its hellfire evolved, mutated, transformed into something hunters could no longer understand. Witnesses described the purple flames darkening into black-red wisps, a strange haze lingering long after the monster had passed, an airborne residue that seemed capable of clinging to soil, vegetation, and even armor. Hunters exposed to it reported headaches, insomnia, confusion, then, eventually, hallucinations. Whatever had happened to this ancient Magnamalo, its hellfire no longer behaved like the unstable gas documented by the guild. It had become something far more persistent, and wherever traces of it were reported, disaster seemed to follow. The first documented encounter occurred nearly 2 centuries ago, at least according to surviving records. A mountain village known as Carr's Hollow sat isolated between steep cliffs and dense forests. Nothing unusual ever happened there. No elder dragon sightings, no major monster attacks, just hunters, farmers, families. Then one winter, the nightmares began. At first, villagers reported hearing voices, not outside, inside their homes, inside their heads. Parents claimed children were speaking to invisible figures in empty rooms. Hunters swore they could hear distant screams echoing from beneath the earth. Livestock became erratic. Dogs barked endlessly at shadows. Horses refused to leave their stables. And every night, reports became more severe. Several residents wandered into the wilderness without explanation. Search parties eventually found them miles from the village, disoriented, exhausted, unable to explain how they had gotten there or why. Then came the deaths. Not ordinary deaths. No buildings burned, no forests ignited. Instead, people began collapsing without warning. Witnesses described victims falling to their knees before thick black smoke escaped from their mouths. Their breathing became strained. Their skin blistered. And within minutes, they were dead. Autopsies revealed something impossible. Their internal organs had been severely charred, reduced to blackened remains. Yet their skin showed only minor burns. Guild physicians initially believed the deaths were caused by an unknown toxin. Others suspected some form of thermal reaction linked to hellfire exposure. Whatever the cause, the damage consistently originated deep within the body rather than on the surface. The village healer declared it a curse. The hunters disagreed. They believed a monster was responsible, but no tracks could be found. No evidence, no signs. Until one morning, a child discovered a carcass, a massive Arzuros lying beside a riverbank, dead, yet untouched. No wounds, no blood, nothing. The beast appeared merely asleep until someone touched it. The body collapsed into brittle fragments. Much of the beast's internal tissue had hardened into mineral-like deposits. Portions of the skeleton appeared fused together. Some researchers later compared the condition to extreme calcification accelerated beyond anything previously observed in nature. No natural predator could explain such a condition. No known monster had ever produced similar effects. The guild dispatched investigators immediately. None returned. Months later, a second expedition arrived. Veteran hunters, elite researchers, individuals who had survived elder dragons and natural disasters alike. Only one survived. His journal remains among the most disturbing documents ever recovered. The final entries read as follows. We found tracks. They are enormous. Nothing should be this large. The air feels wrong. Several members of the team claim they are seeing movement where none exists. We are all exhausted. Then we can hear things. Some of the team insist they are hearing familiar voices. They keep walking into the fog. We cannot stop them. Hours later, another entry. They are gone. We found their armor. Empty. No bodies. Only stone. The handwriting deteriorates afterward. Words become frantic, erratic, barely legible. The haze is everywhere. We cannot escape it. Some of the team are coughing. No one is sleeping. I keep seeing things. Then the final line. The last words ever written by the investigator. It won't leave my head. When rescue teams eventually discovered him, he was dead. Kneeling beside a cliff, hands clasped together, his body almost completely calcified. A stone-like figure staring toward the horizon. Guild officials buried the report. Publicly, the investigation never existed. Privately, they began preparing for war. Because evidence finally pointed toward a single culprit, an ancient Scorned Magnamalo. But this creature was unlike any Magnamalo previously recorded. The monster possessed an environmental aura extending far beyond normal hellfire range. Researchers eventually developed a theory. They believed the monster's hellfire had evolved into an unusually stable particulate form capable of remaining suspended in the environment for extended periods. Prolonged exposure appeared to produce a progression of symptoms. Headaches, fatigue, irritability, hallucinations, severe thermal damage to internal tissues, and, in extreme cases, abnormal mineralization of the body after death. The theory was never conclusively proven, but it explained far more than curses ever could. And the phenomenon continued spreading. Village after village, settlement after settlement, entire regions became ghost towns. Not because the monster attacked, because nobody dared remain nearby. Even wildlife disappeared. Large monsters abandoned established territories. Migration routes shifted. Food chains collapsed. It was as though entire ecosystems were attempting to flee contamination. Hunters eventually tracked the creature to a volcanic canyon known today only through fragmented maps. The assault force numbered nearly 50. One of the largest hunting operations in guild history. Most never returned. Survivor testimony remains inconsistent. Some claimed the creature appeared larger than an ordinary Magnamalo. Others insisted it wasn't larger. It merely felt larger. Every witness agreed on one detail: the aura. The hellfire no longer resembled ordinary flames. Black-red haze drifted constantly around the monster. The air shimmered with heat. Visibility became unreliable. Several survivors later admitted they could no longer trust what they had seen during the fight. Hunters reported auditory hallucinations. Some heard familiar voices. Others described distant screams. Many refused to discuss exactly what they experienced. And as the battle continued, the deterioration intensified. Hunters became confused, disoriented, paranoid. Some fled. Others became unable to distinguish allies from enemies. One reportedly lowered his weapon and wandered directly into the haze surrounding the creature. He was never seen again. Those who maintained enough awareness to fight described attacks unlike anything in guild records. The beast's hellfire clung to armor, not exploding immediately, waiting, spreading, sinking deeper. Victims reported feeling warmth beneath their skin, then unbearable heat, then agony. Their armor began glowing from internal temperatures. Smoke escaped through the gaps in their equipment. One hunter supposedly survived the burning process for several minutes, begging companions to help him. They couldn't. Many were already suffering severe hallucinations of their own. Eventually, his body collapsed. And when surviving hunters returned after the battle, what remained was not a normal corpse, but a hardened shell of mineralized tissue. A grim reminder of what prolonged exposure could do. The hunt ultimately failed, not because the hunters lacked strength, not because they lacked courage, but because courage means little when your own senses can no longer be trusted. The Hellflame Magnamalo vanished after the massacre. No carcass was recovered. No proof of death ever found. Only devastation. Only silence. Only abandoned settlements and strange remains left behind. Over time, nature reclaimed the region. Forests returned. Animals migrated back. Life slowly resumed. Yet strange reports persist even today. Travelers disappearing near forgotten canyons. Hunters suffering identical nightmares after entering isolated valleys. Entire camps abandoning expeditions after reporting the same symptoms. Most chilling of all are discoveries occasionally made deep within remote wilderness. Stone-like figures, humanoid shapes hidden among cliffs and caves. frozen expressions worn into hardened remains. Officially, they are natural formations, misidentified fossils, coincidence, nothing more. Unofficially, many believe they are victims, people who wandered too close, people exposed for too long, people who encountered something the guild would rather forget, something ancient, something waiting. Because according to the oldest legends, the creature's hellfire changes those exposed to it. Hunters, animals, entire ecosystems. Some stories claim the voices heard within affected regions come from previous victims. Others argue they are simply the final stage of exposure to whatever contaminant surrounds the beast. No one knows the truth, but the stories persist. And so does the fear. The guild has never officially acknowledged the existence of Hellflame Magnamalo. No confirmed specimen has ever been recorded. No living hunter has provided enough evidence to prove the creature exists beyond doubt. Perhaps the reports describe an ordinary Scorned Magnamalo whose hellfire behaved in ways no one fully understood. Perhaps generations of fear transformed a dangerous monster into a legend. Or perhaps there really was something lurking within those forgotten canyons. Something that left entire regions poisoned long after it departed. Something capable of turning even the most experienced hunters against their own senses. Whatever the truth may be, one fact remains difficult to ignore. Long after the monster disappeared, the stories never did. So, the next time you hear tales of monsters capable of destroying cities, remember, the most terrifying creatures are not always the strongest. Sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that leave scars long after they've gone. The ones that contaminate entire regions. The ones that alter behavior, disrupt ecosystems, and make people question what is real. Because a monster does not need to level a fortress to be remembered. Sometimes all it has to do is leave behind an empty village, a silent valley, a trail that ends abruptly in the wilderness, or a statue-shaped silhouette standing alone where no statue should exist. And somewhere beyond the reach of civilization, beyond forgotten mountains and abandoned villages, the devil of the hollow lands may still roam, its lingering hellfire drifting silently through forgotten valleys, its presence marked not by destruction alone, but by silence, by absence, by places where nothing seems willing to stay for long, no roars echoing through the canyons, no battles recorded in guild reports, only scattered rumors, half-finished journals, abandoned camps, and warnings passed quietly from one generation of hunters to the next. Warnings about strange haze, strange dreams, and places where the air itself feels wrong. Perhaps those warnings are nothing more than old superstition, or perhaps they exist for a reason. Because if even a fraction of the stories are true, then somewhere out there, an ancient Scorned Magnamalo still wanders the forgotten corners of the world, its hellfire spreading silently through the wilderness, searching, spreading, waiting for another ecosystem to collapse, for another expedition to disappear, and for another warning to be buried beneath the dust of history, watching forever.
This report remains under investigation. The Guild closed this case. The archives did not.